So I don't know whether I mentioned this or not, but adversity creates great clarity, right? Through crisis, things get a lot simplified. And one thing for us at Darren Hardy LLC is this crisis has clarified things. It's who we are and who we're for. And as I mentioned to you, maybe previously, we see ourselves as in the healthcare business. And while there are many other professionals that are out there that are very adept and equipped to help you with your physical health, we're here to help people with their mental health. And then coming out of this crisis to help them with their financial health, because undoubtedly we will have to hustle to find our way through what's coming economically. Crisis. I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times by now, but the Chinese characters for crisis is danger and opportunity. And so with crisis comes both of those. And so our job here is to help people navigate and mitigate through the danger and then find the way to take most advantage of the opportunities that will be before us, because they will be massive opportunities as we go forward. So I've gotten a lot of 911 calls from people like you and other CEO and top business leaders who are looking for solutions about what to do. And so like one of the things I'm doing is like, what are the important questions leaders right now need to be asking themselves in order to mitigate and move around the dangers and plan and prepare for the big comeback that's coming out of this crisis and to find their breakthrough, right? The breakthrough after the outbreak. And so like I'm holding an event next week that's walking every business leader through those 10 questions so they can find their solutions. But on the macro level, to answer your question, there's 5 trends that I see sort of starting to reveal themselves that I think everybody watching right now should start thinking about very specifically about how it translates to what they're doing and how they start planning their way forward. So let me just kind of walk through those 5 macros. Number 1 is now is going to be the time for new ideas, new models, new products, new solutions. It will never be easier and it'll never be more readily received than coming out of turbulent times. Because during turbulent times, that's when people are looking for something new. They're looking for something novel. In fact, if it's an old problem, if it's an old solution, it's not as relevant. Like a new solution is actually more relevant coming out of crisis than old ones are. They're more valued. They feel more current. So like when I first got into real estate, I was brand new to real estate coming into the early 1990s through the 1990s recession. And so I was the first to get certified in order to do short sales and made relationships with banks to handle their short sales. And as a result of it, I had a unique selling proposition that none of my veteran experienced competitors did. And it gave me prominence and it gave me a massive advantage in the marketplace. So I think, what are those new models? What are those new needs that exist for your market that didn't exist 30 to 60 days ago? And how can you be a first mover on addressing those needs for this new reality? The second thing I see is that there's going to be exponential growth opportunities. We're always looking in a normal market for 2 to 3x type improvements, but you got to bring your past and it acts as a constraint in order to kind of find those multipliers. Now you got to look only for 10 and 100x type exponential growth opportunities. And they're now available more than ever before, because you only can find 10 and 100x growth opportunities in blue oceans. Well, all of a sudden, I told you the monopoly board got shaken and it's a new open territory now. And so all the open territory is 10 and 100x growth opportunities. If you stop doing what it was that you were doing before and start looking, get out of the bloody waters that you were fighting in before and start looking for those new blue oceans. So, and everything's been accelerated. I mentioned to you before that there's a lot of people are talking about all the restaurants that are going to go out of business. Look, the reason why the restaurants are going to go out of business is because they were hanging on by a thread before. I mean, those that only had 16 days worth of cash in the bank and they were struggling with hiring the right people and their food was half-assed and mediocre and their place was a little bit dirty. They're going to get wiped out, gone. But I guarantee you, the strong ones, the people who are beloved in the community, they're going to come back stronger than ever. I would say 30% of all restaurants all over the globe are going to be wiped out. That's a minimum. Right. And then people are going to go back to restaurants, trust me, and they're going to go back in force. And the 70% that remains are going to suck up the rest of the market that no longer exists because of the competition. And I guarantee you, a lot of people are going to think a lot harder about getting into the restaurant business going forward. That only strengthens the opportunity for those that were strong before. So, I just think the strong are going to thrive in this and it's going to wipe out supply. So I would ask people to ask themselves the question, where is the 10 and 100x blue ocean opportunities that are either in your lane or adjacent to your lane or are in a pivot to using your existing assets? Third macro trend is this whole idea of remote, virtual, and digital is a new reality. There are a lot of people resistant, the baby boomers and the builder generations, for doing things digital. But that has all been abolished. They've had to. Like, a lot of times we don't do what we want to do. We don't do what we should do. We only do what we have to do. Well, a lot of people have had to figure this out. And in doing so, that we're like, oh my God, this actually is great. I didn't have to get in a car. I didn't have to fight the commute. I didn't have to go and sit in the waiting room. I could just get this done virtually and then go about my life. So that there will be a whole new acceptance to that. And it will be a whole new consumer habit training around this. So like one of our elite members that you're a part of, Gary, runs a company called Fetch MD, and they put doctors in cars and send them to your home. And that's their business model, is basically bringing the doctor to you. Well, they had a telemedicine model, but it was slow to adopt because a lot of their patients, they wanted to still see their doctor. They weren't comfortable with just seeing their doctor on camera and being prescribed and diagnosed and so forth. So that model was really slow, and the regulations around that were really slow, because if there is something that is an old dog, it is all the regulators and all the established status quo of the medical industry and the legislators and so forth. Well, with this whole new reality, they had to switch to that right away. And so our friend doubled down on his telemedicine model, and now went from only being able to service an area that you could drive doctors to, is now servicing the entire state of Texas, and is now starting to scale across the nation, because the adoption, the behavior changed in the consumer marketplace and in the regulatory marketplace. Starbucks is going to come out of this stronger than ever, and here's the reason why. They had 30% of their customers doing their digital transactions, getting a loyalty card, putting money on it, and then using the card at the cash register. That's a huge part of their business, is this digital loyalty. In fact, in 2019, they did $1.6 billion in prepaid deposits on loyalty cards. 2018, they had 156 million in breakage income left on those cards, which means people put money on the cards and they never used them. Right. That's free money. They didn't even have to serve coffee for the money. It was literally like $156 million charity donation. The year before it was 104. The year before that was 60 million. So if they can get the other 70, holy shit, how much is that worth to them? So, and they're trying out this drive-through only, so they don't even have to go through the expensive design and real estate. And so they could just put these kiosks and the drive-through. People didn't want to accept that before, but now it's a whole different consumer behavior. So there's a whole different opportunity. People who were not regular Amazon users started using it now that they couldn't go to the stores. They're not turning back, right? I have a guy that has helped gym owners turn their business model into virtual gyms, right? And he went from having no business to doing $100,000 in a weekend. So, I mean, we're talking everything. Services that were normally provided in person, like counseling or cooking classes, are all going virtual. And think about the cost and efficiencies and scaling capabilities that provides. So I would ask everybody to ask themselves, what changes in consumer behavior in your industry have shifted? And how can you respond? How can you take advantage, even if it's just for efficiency or scale sakes? There's huge opportunities in that adoption process that has it's been accelerated by 100 years. Like, maybe that's too far 50 years, we have accelerated our adoption of technology, virtual, distributed workforces, remote, all that has been advanced by 50 years. So number 4, the other aspect is convenience. See, Netflix beat Blockbuster not because they had better movies. Convenience. They shipped them to you in the mail. You didn't have to get in your damn car, go down there and, haggle with the 18-year-old that was working the cash register, get back in your car and then pay all the late fees. So they just made it more convenient. That's all they did. Digital photography, we know that Kodak is the one who invented it. They had all the patents on it, and they lost out on it because they didn't want to kill their 90% margin film factory business. And they couldn't see how people would prefer it because at the time, film resolution was 10 to 30 million pixel resolution. And digital at the time was like the quality of VGA. It was less quality. What they didn't anticipate, and this is something Steve Jobs taught us, convenience trumps quality. People preferred the convenience of digital photography even over the quality. And Jobs proved that with the Apple iPod, in fact, that the iPod's music quality was not as good as a CD. But people preferred having 1,000 of them in their pocket than they did the quality of the CD. It was good enough. So convenience is a massive opportunity and advantage. So we saw, Amazon destroy Sears, JCPenney's, Macy's, soon Best Buy, things like Instacart, DoorDash. They can't hire people fast enough and so forth. So I would ask people to ask themselves, what are the innovations in convenience within how you do business or how you deliver business that you should be taking first mover advantage on? And then the last one of my favorites, because impact is our first core value here at Darren Hardy LLC, is now's the time you can make a bigger contribution in people's lives than ever before. Before, you might have been selling vitamins, right? Which is good for people. And over time, you're going to see the benefit of our business model versus others, being part of our network versus others. But right now, you can be a painkiller. People got some serious, they're bleeding. They got pain, and you can solve it. It's not about the cost benefits, this feature versus that feature right now. Right now, you could be providing life-saving solutions. So I would ask you to ask yourselves, where can you help the most? Selling painkillers instead of only selling vitamins. And like Gary, this event is part of you doing that. It's part of you doing that. I mean, you could go out all day and be like, the DLC network is better than that other network because of this reason and that reason. And you're going to love us and our people. And that's vitamins, and it's good. Vitamins are good for you. But it's like, okay, I'm all right. I'm comfortable. I'm good. I mean, the cost of change is too great. Right now, you're providing people painkillers. They got serious problems. You're providing serious answers. You could be a knight in shining armor. Now, you couldn't have 60 days ago. So that's what I mean. Inside everybody's individual business, there is that reality where before you were painting the picture of features and benefits, now people have serious problems and you could be their white knight.
Be the exception.